You didn't lose her. You found yourself again. At first, it may have felt like everything was falling apart, like the world you built around her collapsed overnight. You kept replaying moments, conversations, and memories in your head, trying to find the point where it all went wrong. You thought losing her meant losing everything, but slowly, through the pain and silence, something powerful began to happen. You started to see who you were without her, and you realized that maybe the loss wasn't a punishment, it was a redirection. Sometimes God removes people from your life not to hurt you, but to help you see your own worth without needing their validation. See, when you gave her everything, your time, your love, your energy, you forgot to give yourself anything. You started defining your happiness through her approval, your confidence through her attention, your peace through her presence. And when she left, that emptiness you felt wasn't about her absence, it was about the part of yourself you neglected while trying to love her. Losing her forced you to face yourself. And that's where true healing begins. Because when you're no longer distracted by someone who couldn't see your value, you finally have space to build the version of you that was always buried beneath compromise and emotional chaos. You didn't lose her. You lost the illusion that love had to mean suffering. You learned that real strength isn't in holding on, it's in letting go with dignity. The man you are now isn't broken, he's reborn. You've learned how to be alone without feeling lonely, how to stand tall without needing anyone's reassurance. You've learned to enjoy your own company, to find peace in silence, and to trust your own path again. That's what she lost. Not the old you who needed her, but the new you who no longer chases what doesn't align with peace. And that realization changes everything, because once you find yourself again, you stop waiting for someone else to complete you. You stop replaying the past and start rewriting your future. The man who once begged for closure now understands that closure is something you give yourself. You stop wondering if she misses you, if she regrets it, if she still thinks about you, because deep down you know, even if she does, she'll never find the same version of love again. You've evolved, and once you evolve, you can never go back to who you were. So no, you didn't lose her. You lost the part of you that needed to be understood by someone who was never meant to understand you. You found strength in stillness, clarity in heartbreak, and purpose in pain. You became the man who no longer seeks validation but lives in truth. And one day, when she looks back, she'll realize that losing you wasn't her escape, it was her greatest mistake. She didn't leave because you weren't enough. She left because she couldn't handle your depth. Sometimes the truth is simple but painful. Not everyone is built to love deeply, honestly, or completely. You gave her something real, something steady, something that required emotional maturity to understand. But when someone is used to confusion, validation, and surface level excitement, real connection feels uncomfortable. Your consistency made her confront herself, and that's something not everyone is ready for. You didn't lose her because you lacked something. You lost her because your presence demanded more than she was prepared to give. You were offering loyalty in a world addicted to attention. You were ready to build something real while she was still chasing moments that faded as quickly as they appeared. Your love wasn't complicated. It was clear, honest, and intentional. But for someone who thrives on emotional chaos, peace can feel like boredom. Stability can feel like confinement. She mistook calmness for a lack of passion, when in truth, your calmness came from emotional control, from a place of maturity she couldn't yet understand. You weren't too much, you were too real. And people who aren't ready for real often run from it. Your depth exposed what she was trying to hide. You saw through her defenses, her distractions, her emotional walls. You saw her not for who she pretended to be, but for who she truly was. And that kind of connection is powerful, it's rare, but it's also terrifying for someone who hasn't faced themselves yet. Because being loved deeply means being seen completely. And being seen means your insecurities, fears, and truths can no longer hide behind the games, the attitude, or the excuses. That's what she couldn't handle, not your love, but her reflection in it. In her world, shallow connections were easier. They didn't demand growth, accountability, or emotional vulnerability, but you brought something different. You brought a kind of energy that made her feel safe, seen, and valued. At first, she was drawn to it. She loved your strength, your consistency, your calm. But as time went on, it became too real. Because loving a man with depth means facing your own lack of it. And rather than grow with you, she chose to walk away. That wasn't your failure, that was her fear. And one day she'll understand that walking away from depth means walking toward emptiness. She'll meet others who might make her laugh or excite her for a while, but none will reach her soul the way you did. Because men like you don't come around often. Men who love with purpose, who protect with peace, who lead with heart. She'll search for that balance of strength and softness again, but she won't find it. Not because it doesn't exist, but because she had it and she let it go. You were her stability while she was chasing excitement. You offered calm when she craved chaos. You gave consistency when she wanted unpredictability. In a world that glorifies quick thrills and temporary highs, stability is often mistaken for dullness. You became her anchor, but she was still addicted to the waves. She wanted the rush of new attention, the spark of something different, the illusion of freedom. What she didn't realize was that excitement fades, but peace lasts. You were the man who had brought her balance, but she traded it for moments that would eventually leave her empty. She didn't understand that the peace you gave wasn't weakness, it was strength. The way you handled problems calmly, the way you stayed grounded when she was emotional, the way you stood firm when things got hard. All of that came from a place of maturity. You didn't play games, you didn't manipulate, you didn't need to prove your worth through drama. But for someone who has only known emotional turbulence, peace can feel unnatural. To her, it wasn't love unless it came with intensity and confusion. So she mistook your calmness for indifference, not realizing that the kind of love that lasts isn't built on constant highs and lows. It's built on presence, patience, and trust. She might have found someone who excites her temporarily, someone who says all the right things, someone who makes her heart race for a moment, but that feeling won't last because eventually excitement turns into exhaustion when there's no foundation underneath. And that's when she'll remember you, not for the flowers, the words, or the promises, but for the peace you brought to her chaos. She'll remember that she could be herself around you without pretending. She'll remember that your presence made her feel safe even when she didn't understand why. And it's in that stillness of regret that she'll realize peace was never boring. It was priceless. You were never meant to compete with her chaos. You were meant to show her what calm felt like. You were the calm before her storm, the reminder of what true connection feels like when ego steps aside. But she wasn't ready for that lesson yet. She had to lose peace to recognize its value. Because some people can't understand what they had until they experience everything it wasn't. And while she keeps chasing new faces and new thrills, none will bring her the emotional safety you gave effortlessly. One day, when the noise around her fades and the excitement wears off, she'll crave what she once called boring. She'll crave the quiet love, the honest presence, the peace you gave without conditions. But by then, you'll have moved on, not in bitterness, but in balance. You were her calm in a world of chaos, and she walked away from it. Now that peace she left behind is exactly what she'll spend the rest of her life searching for and never truly find again. The man you are becoming is her biggest loss. She may think she walked away from the same version of you she once knew, but she has no idea who you're turning into. The pain she caused, the silence that followed, and the emptiness she left behind, all of it became fuel for your transformation. While she was moving on to distractions, you were moving on to discipline. While she was looking for validation, you were building value. The heartbreak that once broke you now builds you, and the version of you that's emerging is one she'll never get close to again. It's easy for her to think she left a man who would wait, who would always be there, who would still be available whenever she changed her mind. But what she doesn't realize is that pain changes people, especially men with purpose. You stopped being the man who chased love and became the man who attracts it effortlessly. You stopped explaining your worth and started embodying it. You stopped seeking closure from her and started creating clarity within yourself. Every moment of silence, every lonely night, every unanswered message was shaping something inside you that she will never have access to again. A stronger, wiser, more grounded version of you. And there was a time when her opinion could shake your confidence. Now your self-belief doesn't need anyone's approval. There was a time when you needed her to choose you. Now you've learned to choose yourself. You've learned that self-respect isn't about pride, it's about peace. You no longer measure your value through her recognition. You measure it through your growth, your focus, and your ability to rise every time life tried to break you. That's what makes you powerful. That's what makes you unforgettable. She might look back one day and see you living with purpose, achieving more, smiling wider, surrounded by peace and people who see your worth instantly. And in that moment, she'll realize that the man she left isn't the man who exists anymore. The version she walked away from is gone, replaced by someone she no longer deserves. The one who once overgave now knows his limits. The one who once begged for love now walks in abundance. It's the one who once tried to be understood now understands himself fully. That evolution is her biggest loss. Because nothing hurts more than realizing the person you left behind became everything you once wanted. She'll remember your patience, your kindness, your loyalty, but this time it won't be available to her. You've grown beyond her reach. You didn't need revenge or words to prove anything. You simply became better. And that silent transformation, that calm confidence, will echo louder than any apology she could ever give. You didn't lose when she walked away. You evolved, and she lost the man she'll never find again. Your silence became your statement. You didn't need to argue, explain, or convince her of your worth. You simply stopped participating in the drama that drained your peace. Silence doesn't always mean weakness. In fact, it often speaks louder than any emotional outburst ever could. You see, when a man stops reacting, he becomes unpredictable. When he stops chasing, he becomes powerful. You didn't go silent to play games. You went silent because you finally understood that peace speaks for itself. You realize that walking away quietly says everything that needs to be said without a single word being spoken. At first, she might have thought your silence meant you didn't care. She might have assumed you were numb, indifferent, or even broken. But as time passed, that silence began to echo, because silence has a way of haunting people, especially when it comes from someone who used to care deeply. She was used to your attention, your effort, your consistency. She expected a reaction, a text, an argument, something to prove she still mattered. But when that didn't come, when your energy no longer flowed in her direction, it created a void she couldn't fill. And that void spoke volumes. Your silence became power because it came from understanding. You finally realized that not every situation deserves a response, not every betrayal deserves confrontation, and not every person deserves access to your emotions. Sometimes Silence is your way of saying, I see everything, but I choose peace. You stopped explaining yourself to someone who had already decided not to listen. You stopped fighting to be seen by someone who only looked at your flaws. And in doing that, you regained control, not over her, but over yourself. It's a strange thing how silence can change the energy between two people. When you were speaking, explaining, and proving, she felt in control. She knew she had your attention. But when you went quiet, that control vanished. Suddenly, she was the one overthinking. She was the one replaying moments, analyzing your actions, wondering what went wrong. Your silence forced her to confront what she had done, not because you demanded accountability, but because she couldn't escape the truth that your peace revealed. And the truth is, silence isn't the absence of emotion, it's the presence of strength. It's what happens when you've said all you could and finally choose yourself instead. You no longer argue for your value, you simply live it. You no longer demand respect, you walk in it. And that shift is undeniable. The same silence she once mistook for indifference will one day remind her of what she lost. A man who loved with death, but who now loves himself more. In the end, your silence wasn't revenge, it was revelation. It showed her that losing your voice didn't mean losing your power. It meant you had finally found it. You didn't lose love, she lost loyalty. You were the man who showed up when it mattered most. The one who cared even when she made it difficult. The one who stayed when walking away would have been easier. You were ready to build something real, not temporary attention, not conditional affection, but something that would stand through storms. But she mistook your loyalty for weakness. She thought your patience meant she could take you for granted, that your forgiveness meant you'd always be there. What she never realized was that loyalty is only a gift when it's appreciated. Once it's taken for granted, it becomes a lesson, and you became that lesson. You gave her something rare, consistency in a world full of confusion. While others offered her attention, you offered her commitment. You didn't just talk about love, you showed it in your actions. But the truth is, some people aren't ready for that kind of love. They crave excitement more than stability, validation more than value, and fantasy more than reality. She was chasing temporary thrills while you were building long-term peace. And when someone like that leaves, it's not your loss, it's theirs. Because loyalty once lost can't be replaced by just attention. When you love with loyalty, you love with your heart, your time, and your soul. You invest your energy in someone you believe in, and when that person walks away or betrays that loyalty, the pain cuts deep, but it also clears your vision. You start to see who truly deserved that loyalty and who was just there for the benefits of it. You realize that not everyone who says they value love actually values loyalty. Because love without loyalty is just emotion, but loyalty is what keeps love alive when feelings fade. And you had that, she didn't. She'll come to understand that kind of loyalty doesn't come twice. She might find men who flatter her, who make her laugh, who bring temporary joy, but she won't find another man who had her back the way you did. She won't find another man who saw her flaws and still chose to stay. She won't find another man who stood by her with patience even when it hurt, because your loyalty came from love, not ego. It came from heart, not habit. And once you gave that, it became something irreplaceable. Now you've learned the most important truth. Your loyalty should never outlast your self-respect. You can love deeply, but you can't stay where your love is undervalued. You can care sincerely, but you can't beg to be seen. When you walked away, it wasn't from love, it was from imbalance. You didn't lose love, you chose peace. You didn't lose her. You simply stopped fighting for someone who had already lost you. And one day, she'll finally understand that she didn't just lose a man, she lost the kind of loyalty she'll never experience again.